Hey everybody, and welcome to another segment of AstrologyAnswers.com's weekly forecast. My name is Terence. The week begins on Monday, August the 28th, 2023. Big week because we're going to have a full moon and some planets are turning retrograde and some other planets are turning direct. Lots of shifting energies. The full moon just creating a lot of emotional reactiveness. But let's start with Monday the 28th. The moon that sets the emotional tone, the public tone, will be in Aquarius. Aquarius is very humanistic. It's impersonal, it's progressive, it rules friendships and group activities. So there's a lot of that inclination to be a part of a group or an organization or hang out with friends. But the moon in Aquarius will be in harmony with assertive, ambitious Mars mid-morning Pacific Daylight Time. That's a great energy to start the new work week because it gives a lot of motivation, a lot of drive, and with the moon in Aquarius, coming up with new original ideas, thinking out of the box. And Uranus, the planet that's associated with Aquarius, Uranus is going retrograde. That will join 5 other planets in retrograde. So from Monday the 28th until September the 15th, when Mercury finally goes direct, we're having 6 retrograde planets. This is very unusual. It's a lot of readjusting, reevaluating, could be positive for kind of taking a real deep look within ourselves and to reset where we're going. Now, on Tuesday, the 29th, the moon in inventive, quirky Aquarius will be in a tense aspect to Jupiter from 8 to 10 a.m. Pacific time. Now, the moon is an emotional bonding energies. Jupiter tends to be optimistic, outgoing, generous, but when the emotional moon is in tension with Jupiter, we emotionally tend to overdo, overinflate, expect. So for that hour or two from 8 to 10 a.m. Pacific time, you wouldn't want to be making any promises. You wouldn't be hoping, to get a job because you'd have these big expectations. Moderation will get you a lot further. As we go into Wednesday, the 30th, and it's the full moon in sensitive Pisces. Full moon, everything comes to light, every time of culmination, any kind of hidden matters, secrets are revealed. In general, it's a time of testing relationships, especially with Venus in retrograde, the planet of relationships, and communication, Mercury in retrograde. But this full moon will also be aligned with Saturn. So that could bring in, on the positive, a tremendous amount of responsibility and hard work on your plate. But you could also be feeling really frustrated and limited and blocked, the negative side of Saturn or the heavier side of Saturn, but especially because now we're dealing with 6 planets in retrograde when there's all this 2 steps forwards, 1 step backwards. Also on the 30th, before the full moon, the moon will be void of course in the sign of Aquarius from 8:04. Actually, from Tuesday evening, the 29th, from 8:04 p.m. through Wednesday, the 30th, at 6:57 a.m., at which point the moon goes into Pisces. Now, there's a number of moon void of courses over the next week or two, and with Mercury in retrograde, and then with 6 planets in retrograde, you don't really want to be making life-altering decisions. A void of course means, as I say, The moon is changing signs. It's no longer making aspects to other planets until it changes signs. So the energy is flat and unproductive. And with all these retrogrades and when the moon's void of course, best to just lay low, reflect, stick to your routine. Don't try to come up with any kind of new projects because the energy will run flat. At 6:57 a.m. on Wednesday, the moon goes into Pisces, and several hours later, we'll have the full moon that with Pisces can be very sensitive. But with that Saturn, again, you could be feeling constrained. On Thursday, the 31st, that moon in sensitive, creative, empathetic Pisces will be in harmony with expansive, generous Jupiter from about 7 to 9 a.m. Pacific time. It's actually a good with Jupiter traveling, and it's the early morning Pacific time, could be a good time to be headed towards, the airport, because that moon Jupiter can bring in that desire for travel and freedom. But remember, especially with Mercury in retrograde, delays. So whether you're taking a train, a bus, a car trip, a cruise line, expect the unexpected, expect delays. So if you give yourself plenty of time, you'll be ahead of the game. From noon to 8 p.m., early afternoon Pacific time, the emotional moon will be in opposition or confrontation with rational Mercury that's retrograde. That would be a very stressful time to be having meetings, to be having heartfelt conversations, because on one party would be the emotional subjective moon versus the other party, an analytical rational Mercury, but it's retrograding. And so there's all this mishaps and miscommunications. The good news is we're only talking about an hour or two early afternoon Pacific time. On Friday, September the 1st, the moon in Pisces will also be void of course from 3:36 a.m. to 6:25 a.m. Pacific time, at which point it moves into fiery, dynamic, courageous Aries. Aries can make us all feel like restless. Let's get going. I'm bored. But breathe and take your time and think before acting because of all the retrograde planets. And by noon, Pacific time, from noon to 2 p.m. Pacific time, the emotional moon will be opposite confrontation with impatient, irritable Mars. So you may be more prone to being irritable, argumentative, or making really emotional, impulsive decisions. On Saturday, September the 2nd, as the moon, which sets the public tone, is in this impatient, independent Aries, Venus is what we call stationary. Because on Sunday, September the 3rd, Venus starts to move forwards, finally starts to go direct, as it's been retrograde since July the 22nd. Now, stationary is when a planet, right before it goes direct or right before it goes retrograde, if you look through a high-powered telescope, it's going to look like the planet isn't moving at all. Stationary. But what it's doing is it's really intensifying that Venus energies. It will be at 12 degrees of Leo. Leo is all that passion and romance and play. And it is the weekend, and it is the moon in fiery, outgoing Aries. So you might be feeling this restlessness to just have some romance, have some fun, enjoy life. So on Sunday, now the Venus starts to slowly open up and move forwards. So all this reflecting, readjusting, about Venus domains, your love life, creative projects, your finances, your beauty in clothes and fashion, all Venus, that you might have been feeling out of sorts, unsure, second guessing. Now the Venus wants to go direct, but it's moving very slowly, and there's still all these retrograde planets until September the 15th. And Jupiter on Sunday will be stationary, because on Monday, September the 4th, it begins to go retrograde until the end of December. But also on Sunday, the moon in Aries will go retrograde, or go void of course, 4:57 a.m. to 8 a.m. Pacific time, at which point the moon goes into calming, steady Taurus. And early afternoon, the moon in grounding, practical Taurus will be in harmony with realistic, pragmatic Saturn. So it's a Sunday, but you could be feeling really grounded and confident to be moving forwards with projects that you'd already started before, but maybe you can make some progress with that Sunday afternoon Pacific time, or maybe a good time to get everything ready and lined up for tomorrow, Monday, the new work week. I want to thank you for tuning in. I hope to see you next week with my next segment. Until then, be safe and well.